You're flying with your son when suddenly the plane starts to go down. All you can do is brace for impact, and then darkness. When you come to, you realize you're all alone. Where is everyone? And more importantly, where is your son? You realize you're in the middle of the forest, on an island cut off from the rest of civilization. Now you're fighting to survive, find your son, and escape the forest. This is the setup to The Forest. It's a survival horror game in a very literal sense. It has all the survival mechanics you'd expect, like gathering materials and crafting, as well as managing your stats like health and hunger. But it's the horror elements that really set it apart. Now, how does it hold up? Let's talk about it. I'm Adam Scott, and this is The Forest. Other than some launch bugs, I've heard nothing but good things about The Forest, but I know it's flown under the radar of a lot of gamers, so I've always been curious to check it out, and now with the sequel Sons of the Forest out, I thought there's no better time to get lost in the forest. Released back in 2018 on PS4 and PC by small studio Endnight Games. And when I say small, I mean really small, like 4 people small. But what they created is nothing short of impressive. Is it perfect? No. But with the sheer size and scale, with all of the intricate systems, puts a lot of AAA games to shame. The brief cinematic showing the crash is thrilling and does a great job of setting the tone. You know the stakes are high with your son missing, but that's about all you do know. Once you come to, the island's available to you. You can go pretty much anywhere, and there isn't a clear direction. Most games will give you a quest marker, if not straight up tell you what to do and where to go, but not in The Forest. While this can be very overwhelming at first, this does a great job of putting you in the mindset of your character. He's never been in this situation before either, and has a lot to figure out if he wants to survive. So you set out in a direction. Is it the right way? Heck if I know. As you traverse the island, you'll slowly fill in a map. This really gave me the feeling that I was penciling in things I saw which isn't perfect. Like, you can never completely rely on the map for pinpoint accuracy, other than to get you in the general vicinity of where you're wanting to go. But again, this adds to the immersion. You'll slowly become more familiar with the landmarks and can rely less on the map over time. Now, wandering around on a deserted island is terrifying, but realizing it isn't deserted is far worse. Once you begin exploring your surroundings and searching for your son, you'll soon discover you're not alone. You may hear a few twigs snap behind you. Maybe you'll hear odd screeching in the middle of the night. Or maybe you'll simply stumble into one of their camps. However it happens, you'll soon be greeted by the mutant cannibal creatures that call this place home, and who already made short work of the other plane passengers. As night falls, more come out, and it's at this point The Forest separates itself from so many other survival games and becomes something truly special. For most survival games, the story is an afterthought at most. The focus tends to be solely on the mechanics in an endless balance of skills, meters, and crafting. However, The Forest puts the narrative and the scares first, and the game is absolutely better for it. You're fighting for something more important than mere survival, and the horror aspects increase the stakes. Rather than a million cutscenes or a protagonist who monologues every little thing, most of the story is delivered through incredible environmental storytelling. You'll stumble across a group of empty tents and the trail of blood leading away, the remains of other less fortunate passengers, or a trail of drawings left by your son. This is a simple and organic way to tell the story. You absolutely feel like a castaway uncovering the details of a dark past and following the clues you'll find along the way. And as open as the game is, it has a real honest-to-goodness ending. I know, it sounds strange to point that out, but so many survival games just go on and on without any real goal, where I tend to lose interest. So building to something kept me engaged throughout. I had a purpose, and I was compelled to see it through. Yes, The Forest puts more emphasis on story than most survival games, but it doesn't skimp on the core gameplay. There are 2 different systems for creation, one for building in the environment and the other to craft items you take with you. Environmental creation consists of a full survival guide packed with structures like cabins or tree houses, traps for catching animals or enemies, or even different types of fire pits and more. It's an almost overwhelming number of things to create. Once you've picked something you want to build, you'll have a handy transparent preview of what everything looks like in a list of materials required to build it. As solid as the building UI is, the crafting isn't nearly as elegant. Particularly when you're in a panic, finding exactly what you need can be frustrating. First off, rather than seeing a list of things to create all nicely organized in the survival guide, you can just see all the crafting materials strewn on a tarp. By adding items to the center, you'll see what's possible to create with it. Much of it is what you'd expect, such as combining 2 sticks to make a spear, for example. However, there are plenty of other complicated designs such as bombs, a bow and arrows, or even different types of armor. On top of the crafting, you can also upgrade your weapons with various resources, such as attaching teeth you bash out of mutant skulls to your club to increase the damage, or combining bombs to tree sap to make it a sticky bomb. You'll be like a pack rat, constantly picking up random knickknacks as you explore. Chopping down trees feels great, watching them fall with great physics and subtle creaking sounds as it plummets to the ground. Since everything is balanced so well, you'll always be growing and improving, but never feel overpowered. Even when you're armed with bombs and a chainsaw, although that helps. Which takes us to combat. As expected, you'll start out weak, like laughably weak. In fact, you'll die in seconds when being attacked in the early game. And since there's no checkpoints, and you can only save at structures you find or build, death can carry a heavy weight. There were several times I lost 20 minutes to an hour after stumbling into a nest of cannibals and just getting wrecked. This forces you to play incredibly cautiously, saving whenever possible, moving slowly and carefully, and hoarding supplies. You don't really get more powerful over time. This isn't like an RPG, where you upgrade stats to eventually outpower any foe. Instead, the focus is on building your arsenal. Turn sticks into clubs, skin lizards to fashion armor, that sort of thing. Everything has a level of clumsy imprecision. Swinging some weapons takes a year and a half, and throwing things like Molotov cocktails will land in the general area you were targeting. You can improve the stats of your items through more crafting, but it always feels a little clunky. I'm not sure if this was intentional, like part of the immersion, but knowing that I wasn't guaranteed to connect a powerful blow changed how I played. You're always seconds from death. You're still just as fragile at the end as when you started, but through your knowledge, experience, and careful preparation, you're able to eventually overcome what at first seemed impossible. And if you manage to kill enemies in the cave system, they stay dead, which makes traversal easier and less frustrating the further you progress. In addition to your overall health, you'll need to manage your hunger, thirst, and body temperature, and all of these systems work in harmony to bolster the tension without becoming frustrating. Even with all of these systems, and with the titular forest, the real star is actually the massive cave system that spans below the surface of the island. You'll find key items in the dark, expansive areas, like flashlights, oxygen tanks, and climbing tools for cragged rocks. What the forest truly nails with the caves is an almost tangible feeling of fear from being in the dark and unknown. All of this is aided by intelligent level design and terrifying sound design. Overall, the forest doesn't feature much of any ambient music. It doesn't need any. When you explore the caves, all you hear is the sound of your own footsteps, your lighter, which comes out of your controller, drops of water, rocks crumbling around you, and sometimes distant, abstract noises deeper within the caves that are every bit as terrifying as you imagine them to be. The art direction matches this as well, with plenty of gruesome body horror and ghoulish designs for the mutant cannibals themselves. They vary from intelligent survivalists to mud-covered ferals running on all fours to abhorrent body horror monstrosities. The mutant cannibals have this very interesting characteristic where early on they'll seemingly leave you alone and keep their distance, almost like they're stalking you, only for them to become far more aggressive as the days progress. Throw all this in with the option for up to 8-player cooperative multiplayer, and the forest isn't only a great horror game, it's also just a fantastic time with a group of friends. Positives aside, even with the horrific enemies, many times your most fearsome foe is the Jank. This can range from the odd crash, to sometimes the physics going completely haywire, to whatever's happening here. The draw distance is also pretty short, so the environment or even enemies will just spring into existence at times. Most prevalent was the stuttering, the brief moments the game would freeze, then catch up with itself. I had at least one death where the game froze mid-jump, and when it unfroze, I was at the bottom of a ravine. As I mentioned before, you can save at your houses, but since the game occasionally crashed unexpectedly, I'd lose a decent amount of progress, so an autosave feature upon entering or exiting caves would be really welcome. To get absolutely everything out of the forest, you're looking at around 60 hours of gameplay. You'll need to complete the story at least twice. The first time, you can enjoy the story and play any way you want, but the second playthrough, you'll do a vegan run. This means you can't kill or eat any animals, which is obviously much tougher. There are also separate single-player and multiplayer trophies, so keep that in mind if you don't have any friends. I had a great time completing the forest. The more time I spent in this terrifying and interesting world, and the more I understood the different systems, the more fun I had. The jank and sometimes dumb mutant cannibals aside, what Endnight Games accomplished with the forest with only a team of 4 people is nothing short of amazing. It's one of the best survival games I've ever played. Whether I was creeping my way through the woods alone at night, or playing with friends during the day, I had so much terrifying fun. It's always great to see a game emerge from early access and earn overwhelmingly positive reviews, and I think this was well earned. Whether or not you're into survival games, The Forest has enough story, scares, and interesting mechanics to hook just about anyone, and it definitely did that for me. I highly recommend you check out The Forest, and now, I can't wait to check out its sequel. Okay, well, you've heard my thoughts on The Forest, and I'd love to hear yours as well. Also, what's another great horror game we should all check out? Let's talk about it in the comments down below. If you liked the video, hit like and subscribe. And if you want another great horror game, check out my video right here. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.